program. And we are going to go back to the old Skype, the old Skype-a-rooney, and we are going to attempt to get Todd Burrow music going here. Let's see if we can get him in. And if we don't, we're going to go to our next guest. So we're going to give Todd another shot. And he's not there. So we are going to go to the Bay Area Godfathers. They are going to join us. And we are going to find Bob from the Bay Area Godfathers. And we are going to go to the old Skype. Actually, we're going to go to the telephone. Going to go to the telephone. And hopefully the Bay Area Godfathers will join us. There we are. I've finally been able to get to you, Bob. I apologize for all this.
No worries, James.
So tell us a little bit about the Bay Area Godfathers.
Bay Area Godfathers.
Yes, indeed. This is Bob, right?
The Bay Area Godfathers is the fourth title in the Inside Metal series. And the first three, basically on the LA metal scene, we did the Pioneers of LA Hard Rock and Metal. The first title, followed by LA Metal Scene Explodes, followed by the Rise of LA Thrash Metal. So we pretty much covered LA. And we figured, well, what next? The obvious choice was the Bay Area. And, when I was doing some of the interviews for the LA titles, a lot of those LA bands used to go up to the Bay Area a lot. So we got a lot of good quotes from back then for this title. So it was kind of the obvious choice. And each movie is 2 volumes. So there'll be a part 2 to Bay Area Godfathers, which should be coming out probably around January, I would think.
Fantastic. We have got a great guest with us today. Bay Area Godfathers tells the riveting story of the Bay Area metal scene that gave rise to many mavericks of metal today. And we've got Bob joining us today here on the old Skype, here on the big broadcast. So why did you guys decide to put this whole thing together? Because you've got a lot of great material there.
You're breaking up a little bit here, James.
Okay. Yep. It's Mercury retrograde, everybody. Mercury retrograde. So, Jay, go ahead and jump in there and ask Bob some questions, because he's not going to be able to hear me because of Mercury retrograde.
All right. So, first off, how do people find you online? Because I missed that.
How do people find me online?
Yes. Your social media, how do people find you?
Yeah, Facebook is the best as far as social media. I do have Twitter. I don't do that as much. We do have an Inside Metal Facebook and Twitter as well, and a Bay Area Godfathers Facebook. So, but the best thing is to find me. My personal page is Bob Nalbandian on Facebook.
Now, you said Inside Metal, correct?
Correct.
I apologize. Is that a band or book? What is that?
No, Inside Metal is the series of the movie.
Oh, okay.
And Bay Area Godfathers is the fourth title in that series.
Now, did you produce these or did you write this?
Both. Kind of produced and directed and wrote it out. And then I had both John Stranansky and Danny Shipman as co-producers, and Danny Shipman was also the editor, who did a fantastic job. Both of them grew up in the Bay Area, and we had Hugh McKenzie also do the post-editing, and so we had a really good team behind us. It really worked great.
That sounds like it. When was this movie produced?
Well, we started it. Interesting. We started the whole series back in 2012, and we probably started this one a couple years ago, actually doing the interviews. We had to postpone the release for several months. We were going to do some screenings this year, starting in March through October pretty much. And of course, due to COVID, we had to cancel all the screenings. So
Of course.
we finally got the movie released. Part 1 is out. It's out on DVD, also out streaming on Amazon Prime,
Oh,
iTunes,
hey.
Google Play, Vudu, and a lot of other digital networks out there.
Now, what is the pitch, real quick?
Well, it's basically on the Bay Area hard rock metal scene of the early '80s to early '90s, pretty much. Actually, we actually start in the '70s with Yesterday and Today and bands like that, and have people like Mike Varney involved. So it actually goes back into the '70s and leads into the big '80s metal scene in the San Francisco Bay Area, which primarily was, headed by the thrash metal movement. So we get heavily into the thrash metal movement, as well as just a lot of the more mainstream metal, because there were a lot of great mainstream, I don't want to say mainstream metal, but like, progressive metal and power metal bands and more traditional metal bands, and, bands like Yesterday and Today, Y&T, that kind of led to. So we kind of have it go through how that started the scene going and led into the thrash metal movement, as well as the glam movement too. There was a pretty big glam movement in the Bay Area that we get into.
How would you describe the metal back then to compared to the metal today?
Well, it was a lot more genuine. It was very pure and very raw, especially in San Francisco, whereas I think L.A., there were a lot of the record labels and the industry were based in L.A., so everyone was really thriving to get that record deal. And I think they were in the Bay Area and really everywhere else. But, you weren't right at ground zero of the record industry. So I think the scene just kind of grew into this thrash metal movement as soon as Metallica made their way up to the Bay Area, because of course they originally formed in Los Angeles, and when they made it up to the Bay Area, you had Exodus, and then of course Legacy became Testament and Death Angel, and then Violence and Possessed and Forbidden, and all these thrash metal bands followed, and the Bay Area was really known as a thrash metal capital. But again, we really wanted to cover all aspects and all genres of the hard rock and metal scene of the Bay Area in the 80s.
So would you say that this is more a documentary?
Yeah, it's a documentary.
Okay.
And it's like I said, it's a 2-part documentary. Part 2 will cover kind of where Part 1 left off and get into really the meat and potatoes of the scene. And they are both full-length movies, about 90 minutes long, both available separately, as I mentioned, on DVD and streaming. And Part 2 should be out in January.
So now, when it comes to this documentary, do you have like a voiceover in certain places? Do you have new interviews from these bands, or is this all old footage taken from here and there?
No, the interviews are current. Myself and I mentioned John Sternansky and Danny Shipman. We did all the interviews, and John Sternansky also did the narration. He narrates through the movie, and like I said, he lived and breathed that scene since the late 70s. He lived in the Bay Area and was going to all the earliest of shows of the hard rock metal scene in the Bay Area, and Danny as well back in the 80s. So, they really, lived it. So it was great to have both Danny and John on board to do that. But, it was, really cool working with the two of them.
So which generation would this appeal to?
The 80s metal scene, pretty much. So, it's funny because I could say people of my age, people in their 50s or late 40s or, whatever, that grew up during that time. But, you're seeing a lot more younger generation that are going back into the 80s thrash metal bands. And you notice it with a lot of the newer thrash bands today, kind of emulating that Bay Area thrash metal sound. So, you know, I don't want to limit the generation. I think it's really for all generations. Anyone that has a good love for classic hard rock and metal and classic thrash metal and classic, you know, more traditional metal, I think, and it's a history lesson too. So even if you're not into the metal scene, it's a really good history on how the Bay Area metal scene developed and how it became a worldwide phenomenon.
Sounds like we need to get some teachers to start showing this in classes.
I agree. That would be cool.
Jiggy, do you have a shout out of his stuff?
I believe so. It is a fantastic, just whole documentary they put together. Bay Area Godfathers. It is available online. How do we watch everything, my friend? Okay, I think I'm celebrating Mercury retrograde early, my friends. I don't know. Nothing works during Mercury retrograde. I just wish to God that Ross Long wouldn't have told me about Mercury retrograde. But I'm glad that it's not working today rather than not working next week for our remote in Wichita, Kansas. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to stumble and bumble through another interview. It's Mercury retrograde edition of the world famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast.